This is Taranis AcreForward, the ag industry's most thought-provoking podcast. Listen to interesting people as we go in-depth into the issues affecting crop advisors, growers, and farm communities, uncovering the truth about the ag business and using technology to prepare for the unforeseeable. Ready to explore the future? Let's dig in.
Face, I guess, here with Taranis. My name is Cory Edge. Work with our customer success team based here out of Westfield, Indiana. And today I have a longtime friend and a special guest with us, Drew Garretson. Drew is taking over in a new role. We'll dive into the Keystone Cooperative adventure here in just a minute. But before we kick things off and dive into some of our conversation, Drew, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you got started in your career, and then how you ended up to where you're at today.
No, thanks, Cory. I appreciate the opportunity to be on. It's always fun to have conversations, especially when you get to have them with old friends. So excited to be here. Drew Garretson, in the new organization of Keystone Cooperative, which is newly announced. I am the Vice President of Innovation, Sustainability, and Public Policy, and have had about a 17-year career in the cooperative space. After graduating from Purdue, we moved to my wife's family farm in Southwest Indiana, and had the opportunity to work for Ceres Solutions, a large farmer-owned cooperative, working with farmers at the local level, and really enjoyed that. I left there and spent about 10 years working for Land O'Lakes in the Winfield United division, specifically on the adoption of technology, both with the retail sellers and the farmers alike. Made a little shift towards the end of that 10 years and started working more towards business, digital business strategy, and came back to Ceres in 2020. And that's what I was focused on. How do we start digitizing the business at Ceres Solutions, creating easier and digitized connections with our customers, and really enjoyed those opportunities. I've always had a knack for technology and innovation. It's something that I always, it gives me energy, it gets me excited. And I'm certainly realize we'll probably talk through some of that today, Cory, but that'll be an important part of the future of Keystone Cooperative. How do we continue to bring technology and innovations that are valuable and relevant and productive to our farmer members? And so excited for what that looks like.
Absolutely. Well, and I know just personally, you've grown up in ag your whole life, and in central Indiana. And so I guess, what are some aspects of farming that have influenced your path the most as you've grown, to enjoy and love all parts of ag, but specifically kind of where you're at today? I guess, what parts of farming intrigued you the most to get to where you're at?
Well, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. And it's been a part of my life for a very long time. Didn't grow up on a family farm per se, but it was around it a lot. My dad had a 40-year career at the co-op working with local farmers, and spent a lot of time and effort and working with local farmers in central Indiana. And had an exceptionally good ag teacher when I was in high school, who had a lot of influence on me. And quite honestly, I went to Purdue thinking that that's what I was going to do. Like, I was going to be the world's next greatest ag teacher. And that only played out for a couple of years post graduation, but man, that had a lot of impact on my life and my career. And I've been blessed to have a lot of cool opportunities, worked with a lot of really good people. But just the family values, the salt of the earth folks. I mean, I think about working for a farmer-owned cooperative and how much that means to me, because I think about the business model specifically, and the fact that, we at the end of the day report back to the American farmer. And there is really no other way that I could see that, see myself, working in another industry or even another business model, because I think how that just becomes exceptionally important at the end of the day. I have a lot of friends. I have built a career. I've had a lot of connections I've had a lot of opportunities because of agriculture, and it's because of those, I'm going to call it the seeds that were sown early in my life. And I watched my dad work so closely to make sure that his farmer owners and customers were successful in their farming operation. And, he built friendships and built a community around that. And that I feel the same way about it. And I had the opportunities, to, through internships through Purdue College of Ag, I've had a lot of opportunities, and I've been certainly blessed to have a lot of mentors and leaders in my life that have really shaped my love of agriculture. And think about now, we raising our two kids on a family farm, my wife's family farm in Southwest Indiana, and I can't think of a better way to raise a couple kiddos right there that they get an opportunity to experience that nearly on a daily basis, and super grateful for those things.
Yeah, and I think about too, throughout my career so far is, I think back to how I grew up, and very similarly, was always surrounded by agriculture in one facet or another. And I think one of the things that I've taken with me is the influence of my own dad, my grandparents, and other people throughout my career. And obviously your dad plays a huge part in your early life influence, but who would you say has had a good impact on your career? Some of those people who have inspired you the most as you've gotten to this point?
No, I mean, yeah, we certainly say that your parents are some of those folks that have made a major impact on your life. But outside of those things, I've just been lucky to have been surrounded by some really great mentors. When I was at Land Lakes, we had a lot of really good people on our team, and I built some lifelong friendships and with folks there, folks that I still talk to on a daily basis. One of the folks that I talk to often, and that I would say really challenge me and give me a lot of energy, and that's Joel Whipperford. Joel has been one of those guys that he thinks outside the box. He's going to challenge you. He's going to bring a lot of energy every single day, and he's somebody that has really helped me. And we've worked together like side by side on some big challenges over the years, specifically when I was at Land Lakes, and then more recently, Coach Doug Brunt, kind of from the same stomping grounds, Cory, as you and I. This guy, he's unbelievable. His ability to be able to help somebody navigate through a conversation, the ability to provide some different perspective, provide some challenge. This guy, he thinks his brain is always working, and you remember stuff that I don't see how he's able to fit all of that inside his head, but this provides a perspective, provides a lot of encouragement, will provide some challenge and push when you need it, and those are the people that that I think have made exceptional, kind of top of toward the top of the list of the folks that I've had an opportunity to interact with that really had a lot of positive impact on me.
Yeah, and my ag teacher in high school, he always would stress the importance of you are who you surround yourself with, and make sure you're not the smartest person in the room. And that's I think as we talk about influence, especially in agriculture and building a career, those are definitely things that I think about, and love to network, just as I know you do, and you take so much value out of the people that you have in your circle, and then beyond that, I think the other piece that really has intrigued me, I guess, about building a life and a career in agriculture is if you look and you step outside of ag and see what other industries are doing and how that can apply to our business in serving our customers. There's a lot that could be gleaned from other areas. And I know that agriculture has done a great job of doing that as well. And so that maybe leads us into another topic of conversation. Drew, you've always had, as long as I've known you, this fanatical brain about marketing and branding, and creativity. So, thinking about marketing in general, what are some of your favorite brands that are out there today? And I guess who's doing business the right way?
No, that's a really good question. I think, part of the thought process in that, and I think in ag specifically, we are really, really good at telling the stories to ourselves. Like we have, we tend to listen to one another talk back and forth, right? But I think we can do such a better job of telling our story outside of the circle of agriculture as the generations of folks become more and more removed from the family farm, more and more removed from where their food comes from. I think we have to really challenge ourselves to think through how we tell the story of agriculture. We got to challenge ourselves to think outside of the proverbial box and find different ways to engage, because there is no one that people trust more than a farmer, right? And I think that the ability to leverage that is not been realized yet. I think the fact that we're just so humble, our roots are, in rural communities. We're typically, pretty modest about the successes that we've had as an industry and as people. I think that's where that challenge really comes from. And I think that when we came back and I started asking a lot of questions around the brand of the farmer-owned co-op, I kept hearing the same thing. Like, we have an awesome story to tell. How do we start to think about telling that story in a meaningful and valuable way? And so we started to look through different, campaign strategies and voices and messages and branding. And certainly it's not something that I was trained in by any means, but just became really interested in figuring out that problem. And I felt like over our time, we found some fun ways to be able to tell the story of our farmer-owned system, help them be heroes in the journey and the storytelling, and that was certainly fun. So, I think about brands specifically that just do an exceptionally good job of helping tell that story. And I would say that I think that they still need to figure out how to get beyond the circle of ag and get beyond that. Obviously John Deere, what a powerful brand a John Deere is. And, they had an opportunity a little over a year ago to kind of be the keynote at the Consumer Electronics Show. And that's a big deal for a big stage for a company that's really representing all of us in a way that helps tell the story. And they focused it around sustainability, which I thought was perfect. But that's a cool platform to be able to do that. I think the Land O'Lakes brand does an exceptional good job of trying to connect, because they have a consumer-facing brand that's very relevant to many people, kind of in the dairy case, all the way through to selling inputs to farmers through the Winfield United brands. They have a unique position in the market. They have a really neat way of telling the story. Like 1% feeds 100%, and that's a pretty powerful line. And so it's kind of fun to watch some of those things. And there are other brands out there, maybe more regionally, that I have a lot of respect for, that I think do an exceptionally good job of marketing and telling the story and helping their the rural communities out. And I'm looking forward to the new brand of Keystone Cooperative being one of those key brands in the market, for sure.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you were talking, we are so good at telling our story to ourselves. And I'm not sure when the term advocate came out, mm-hmm. but it seems like we do a lot of that, like you said, within our own industry. And this has been a topic of conversation for, well, more than a decade. I mean, it's been the biggest challenge that ag faces is making sure that those that are not in the industry that rely on us for their way of life is, something that I've always thought about. Well, we talk about it. We need to push more. We need to come up with bigger ideas to reach, our consumer community. And, in a lot of ways, I'm not so sure that anybody's really been able to push through that barrier and get there. I mean, you talked about the John Deere, and I had an opportunity to watch that myself. And there is a lot of really strong messaging that could come out of that. But you think about the stigma that surrounds agriculture with, regardless if it's chemistry, if it's genetics, if all those things become buzzwords outside of our business, and we're more playing defense than offense. I think about the Super Bowl. How many commercials do you see on the Super Bowl that are just so powerful on how they message things and how these brands work? Why can't we get on a stage like that in agriculture that allows us to kind of stand up and promote exactly what it is that we do? The American farmer is so important to all of the aspects of business, and what we do in ag has a lot of value, and maybe not all of it's realized. So, that we could talk all day long about that, but it's just so, everywhere you go, you have an opportunity to influence somebody and to have a conversation about agriculture. That's, again, we talked about mentors earlier. Lots of folks growing up. You and I both know Gary Wilson. He was the ultimate advocate for agriculture. He could make friends with anybody. You see somebody in the grocery store that's got 2 packages of meat in their hand trying to decide which one they want to buy. He'd be the guy that walks up to them and gives them an education. And that's really what we can do with the grassroots level. So that's my message and encouragement to everybody who's listening or watching. Be the person that steps out of your comfort zone and has that conversation with somebody out in public to let them know a little bit more about ag and what we do. So let's switch gears, because you talk about tech and innovation and your passion with ag tech and what that brings to the industry and its importance for your business, for others out there. What is it about ag tech that just brings out this fiery passion for you?
I think it's just taking something like farming that tends to be looked at pretty traditional and applying state-of-the-art technology is something that it's a bit of an oxymoron. I don't think people realize that the technology that farmers are using today to help produce the crop that obviously is feeding 100% of the people. And when I start to think about, those two in the, how opposed they could be in the eyes of a lot of people, and you start to think through, well, what is the future going to look like? There is no way that these things we're going to go backwards. And this is kind of like it's an easy layup of a conversation when you start to think about having conversations on the adoption of technologies that help make people's lives easier or make production more valuable, however you want to look at it. And that's what's always really intrigued me about technology and innovation has been, I think we're going to look back, Cory, and I think 2 things are going to become really important. But in 20 years, you and I will be having a beer on the back porch, and we'll think through and we'll say, man, that the digital revolution agriculture went through from 2005 to 2015, right, will be looked at as a really such an important part of like the mechanization of agriculture or the biotech revolution. I think digital will be looked at in that way, kind of just digitizing the entire operation. And I think the other one will be how sustainability and stewardship adoption practices have made farming meaningful and scalable so I think those things will be 2 things that we look back on become 2 of the most important pieces of the industry. So I think what it comes down to is how we can tie together such a traditional type of occupation or traditional type of activity like farming and apply state-of-the-art technology that sometimes a lot of times it's not even developed for the purpose of agriculture, but gets applied to agriculture in some way. Yeah, I think that's the part that gets me excited is, and you talked about it earlier, and that was a very good point, was, sometimes taking, getting outside of what you would normally surround yourself with and going to look at technology and innovation or perspectives outside of your industry and seeing how they might actually make an application or apply to what you're doing. I think that's really important to continue to develop and challenge yourself in a meaningful way. So I'd say that's what it comes down to, really.
Yeah, and really the American farmer is going to be faced with that challenge. I mean, the adoption of technology is got to be, I think on the top of mind of a lot of folks. And you think about the trajectory over the course of time of what technologies have come out, what have worked, what have not worked. And there's been some hurdles with ag tech over the last decade, obviously over the course of time. But what would you say, today, if you look back over the last 10 years or so, what are some of the hurdles that you've seen in the ag tech space?
I think, I think about, we actually having this conversation yesterday with someone, and we were spending a little bit of time kind of playing through what has happened and then kind of looking to what the next 10 or 15 years looks like. And, if you remember back, if you pulled up to a farmer's farm 10 years ago in 2014, they would have, if you started to ask him about technology, they would have said something like, I'm so confused, Drew. Like, there are so many things being thrown at me, so many opportunities. I've got to, whether it's equipment or it's seed or it's, agronomy. I have so many things coming at me. I don't even know what to do. Like, there's so many opportunities. And, if you started to look at technologies that were coming to market at that time from legacy organizations that have been involved in kind of innovation and technology for a long time, they were bringing new stuff out a lot. And a lot of it had to do with just I'm going to call it the internet of, was getting applied to data and technology, and those things was becoming real. So there was a lot of confusion in the market 10 years ago. And there was then we started to say, okay, well, I'm signing up for these things. I'm just going to start doing them. And then we started having a data problem. Like we had a lot of information and a lot of data that didn't talk to one another. And I'd still say we're not through that yet all the way. I think we still have some issues with that. But I mean, we've had some big leaders in the space, like Climate and John Deere. Specifically are two that come to mind that have really rose to the occasion of trying to figure out how to connect all this data together in a meaningful way for the farmer. Make it easier for them. They don't want to spend time dealing with data or dealing with issues related to technology. That stuff slows them down. They want to be operationally efficient, excellent, and technology can sometimes be burdensome in that capacity. So I would say that's one of the things that I've seen is like the rapid adoption of the availability of tech in a lot of options in the market. And then, so that confusion, then we saw this kind of consolidation. So where there's not as many choices maybe today as what there were 10 years ago, but the technology is better too. And we don't have as much of an issue with having the data talk to one another. There's more connectivity. And I remember in 2014 spending a lot of time going and chasing data, right? Where you had to go get it physically off of machines, and now everything just talks through, through edge computing, through cloud computing, all the way through. And you can, as soon as a farmer gets done with the field, all that information and data layers just automatically load on the, onto in the place that they need it to be without having to go chase things around. So I think that has been a game changer. I still think we got a long way to go as it relates to trying to figure out how to effectively apply data and make insightful decisions. But we certainly came a long way in a short period of time.
Yeah, and the confusion piece really is ultimately the driver, because we have to provide practicality and ultimately support, because they're not going to be able to be as well versed in how this stuff works and how it all communicates with each other, and the data that they're getting back on the acre that they've not been able to really receive before. it is now got to be aggregated in a way and communicated in a way that they understand, and so that they can actually take the tools that are being provided to them, or that, ultimately that they are, putting on their operation, and then how do we grow more? How do we be more effective? And how do we manage things better? So that's really good points.
Well, let me double click on that a little bit, Cory. Like, this is still a people business, and it will be a people business for a long time. And I think that was the thing. I don't think that the ag tech companies, that they were rolling these things out, that came from the coast, and a lot of them came from the West Coast. They thought that we could just disrupt this business pretty quickly without having people. That you needed people to get people on board the systems, and that technology would just take over. And that's just not the case in agriculture. I mean, if you have a good technology that also is paired up with a really good support team of people out in the field, you will be successful. But I'm going to tell you, I've seen a lot of ag tech companies fail because they weren't willing to apply human capital to the problem. They thought that the tech would just solve its own problem. So I think the ag tech companies that will survive, or that have survived, have understood that part really well.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Well, let's move in then to ag retailer and serving growers, because ultimately, regardless if you have technology or not, it's a people business, like you said, and that's what we do. So, to start, what are some opportunities that you see for ag retail and for growers, that the cooperative systems and ag retail are providing? And then to piggyback off that, obviously we have opportunities, but we also have challenges. So maybe name some of those challenges that you kind of see on the horizon as well.
Yeah, I think, as a farmer-owned co-op, I mean, we cannot lose the perspective that we've got to make sure that our customers and our members, our farmers, are successful. I mean, that has to be our number one priority, is that we are here to serve them. We need to have a servant leadership heart and a servant leadership attitude, that our job is to ultimately make sure that our members are successful. And, we do that in a lot of different ways, but that's why we exist. That's why we were, that's why this business model in the Midwest is like 100 years old, because and it works, is because the farmers in our region depend on the system to deliver not just products, but also value and service behind those products. And I think that's the ultimate why of why we're here. So we've got to continue to do that. We got to meet the needs of the farmer of tomorrow. And I think that's we're in this really interesting space right now where we're seeing some rapid consolidation that's happening at the farm gate. It's happening faster than what we maybe even realize it's happening when you start to look at the number of customers that we're serving. And the farmer of tomorrow that's going to be farming that land, their needs and expectations are way different than what grandpa's needs and expectations of the co-op were. So we're going to have to meet them with a lot of speed and efficiencies. They can move a lot of product in a short period of time. Their expectations of us are to meet and, make sure that we're step right with them, helping them get the jobs done. So I think, we've got to continue to be a leader as it relates to that. We've got to continue to provide some level of expertise. Like there's a lot of information that farmers have access to today that maybe 20 years ago we didn't have access to. Helping them kind of discern that, helping them understand what's real, what's not real. I think that's one of the roles of the farmer-owned co-op in the retailer space, is to help them kind of navigate through some of those questions, some of those challenges, and those opportunities. So I think, we got to stay focused on service. We got to be experts at the local level. Challenges will continue to be, how do we keep up? How do we push ourselves and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the farmer of tomorrow? I think that'll be a continued challenge for us. But I think we're up for it when we start to think about the size and the scale of Keystone Cooperative. I think we understand that we're obviously governed by by a board of farmer directors who understand that, And I think they're making decisions that are the right for the farmer. And I think that's something that our customers and our members can be certainly proud of. And but the challenges that'll happen will inevitably be the ability to continue to keep pace with some of those with some of that growth. I think the other things that we're gonna, agriculture is gonna continue to have, I'm gonna call it the challenge of, keeping up with telling that story, I guess is probably the way I'm trying to say that. Like, if we're not proactively involved in the conversations that are happening, both from a policy perspective and a local marketing perspective, then there will be decisions that get made on our behalf without us being involved in the conversation. So I think we've got to take an active role in being engaged in those things, because I think there will be continued challenges for the non-voluntary adoption of practices that can sometimes handcuff some of the way in which we have the freedom to operate today. So I think we got to recognize that and push back and challenge, and always think about doing what's right. And I think if we have that as the foundation of what we do, we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, service differentiation is really the key driving factor to make all those things work, because you take the opportunity, you take the challenge, and you adjust, all those things, and ultimately it comes down to the service that you can provide and the support you can give, both from an expert perspective, but also as somebody who can relate to the challenges that are happening across the board. And that really, actually, you kind of teed up my next question really well. Is as we think about technology in the space of innovation now, and as you look into the future, what kind of trends do you see that are helping advisors and growers address those challenges that you mentioned?
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things that come to mind there. I think labor has been such a large concern of both the ag retailers and farmers for a long time, and it's been something that I don't think is going to maybe go away in the short term, but I think in the long term, we're actually going to see automation and robotics really fill the gap, and maybe even AI in some degrees of technologies or jobs that maybe were somewhat repetitive that can be easily solved. That was, somebody doing this kind of all day. It can be easily solved through either robotics or automation or using AI as a way in order to solve some of those things. So I think we've been talking about that for a while. I think the price of admission is lowering. That the technology has to get to a point where people are going to be willing to pay for it. And I think we're getting close to that, Cory. So I think we're going to see, some of those challenges that we discussed will just get met by the fact that technology and innovation is going to help solve that problem. I do think that's a trend that we're going to see. I think my prediction is that we'll actually see some diversity maybe come back to some of these farms in the Midwest. And that's a product of solving for some of that labor problem. If you think about the way my grandpa's farm may have looked, or your grandpa's or great grandpa's farm may have looked in, 50, 60 years ago, they look a lot different than what they look like today. But I think and one of the reasons why that it was is just because we're losing labor. And so we couldn't have, a few, dairy cows and chickens and all these things, just because we just didn't have enough labor to go around to get all the work done. And so I think, if we can really solve some of those problems with automation, robotics, maybe some of these farmers who tend to be pretty heavy in monocrop agriculture or grain farming specifically, or just in the hog business or something like that, will actually be able to diversify their portfolio more, because they will have solved for some of that problem. That's a bit of a prediction. We'll see how it plays out, but we've seen livestock ownership at the local level really decrease. And I don't know, 1 out of 10 maybe, where a generation ago it was probably 7 or 8 out of 10 of them had livestock in their operation in some capacity. We've We've just got away from that, and I think a lot of that's just done to labor. So those are just some of the predictions that I have for it.
Yeah, no, it's if we all had a crystal ball, maybe we wouldn't be recording this podcast now. It would be.
I had somebody ask me a couple of years ago to talk about come to a conference and speak on farming in 2040, and I'm like, oh heck yeah, I'll do that, because I mean that's kind of like predicting the weather a month from now. Like, I'm not exactly sure, but I'll have fun trying to figure that out. And yeah, that was an enjoyable conversation, and kind of can see people's eyes kind of light up, because they were like, my gosh, is that really what's possible? Pretty neat.
Hey, and you could be dead wrong and nobody's going to come after you.
That's right.
We just don't know.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Well, okay. So you brought up AI a little bit in that conversation, and I saw an article not too long ago. It's called AI, God Send or God Help Us. So what are your thoughts on AI? Both think about it from a consumer perspective, and then also as it relates to agriculture.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that's a bit of a conundrum right now, because you can spin it a lot of different ways depending on how you look at it. I tend to look at things pretty optimistically most of the time, so I'm going to probably speak to it in the eyes of how it could help us, be more efficient and be better at what we do. I understand there's another perspective out there, but I'm going to subscribe to the one that I think is going to be here for the good, right? So, what it comes down to, Cory, is some of the applications that I think that agriculture can benefit from, these things. That a lot of it has to do with the ability to make faster decisions, right? I think that you can solve problems faster if you can, give these models enough information and data to help them make a recommendation to you. And I think, we've done that through human capacity mostly for a long time. And I don't see that going away, because I think people aren't, especially farmers, not going to automatically trust these things. I mean, they're going to have to be verified, through the lens of some expert, at least for a while. And I think long term, I think you'll see these things become kind of regular adopters. An example might be like a digital agronomist, right? If I'm a farmer in a field and I've got a problem, I'm not exactly sure what it is, I have an application on my phone that allows me to be able to quickly capture a video, right, of what this is, and automatically tell me what the thing. I mean, that technology exists. I mean, those types of things are not going to be really hard problems to solve. At the end of the day, it's going to be, do you trust the recommendation that it's giving you when to solve for the problem? Without calling your local agronomist or your local expert to actually verify those things. So I think the other thing is, there's obviously in the ag retail business there are things that we just I'm gonna call business operations. There are things that are going to happen that can be that right now we're applying 2, 3, 5, 10 people to that problem today, that I think can easily be solved through some sort of AI or some sort of automated processes that allows us to take that human capital and apply it to more value added things in the business. And certainly looking at all of those opportunities at Keystone, those will be things that we spend a fair amount of time on to determine, is it worth, having 5 people, there doing that data entry. It has to be done in order to operate the business. But can we plug in, a robot that works 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, that allows us to take those 5 people, actually apply them to things that maybe we're working with members or other value added things within our business. So those are kind of some simple ways to think about technology, innovation, AI as a component of what we're going to do in the future.
Yeah, and it's funny. So a little backstory for our listeners about me. So I raised show lambs. And Drew's family has been showing some sheep from us over the last few years. But I always think about online sales that we have, and you have to have a description or a write up for every animal so that people understand what they are. I didn't use it this time, but I went through and I said, I went on Chat GPT and I said, write me up a description of a very high quality show land. And it's just crazy it spit it out in 2 seconds. And honestly, it wasn't too bad.
It's
just some stuff like that.
Those things are.
Yeah. Or how upset were people when iPhone got rid of the home button that read your fingerprint and went to Face ID? Well, think about how easy is it now just to pick up your phone, look at it, and it'll open the screen for you. Those are things with artificial intelligence that are just so practical to us now. And we think about what's coming in the future. Who knows what it'll hold? But there's a lot of things, both good and bad. I think we all recognize we don't want to take the human element out of life. And there's some things that artificial intelligence can do on a broader spectrum that maybe does that. And I think that's what's so good about agriculture is we know that it's a people-to-people business, and really, and artificial intelligence can be ways to help us be smarter, be faster, more efficient, like you were saying. So it's really interesting. So, okay, now I follow you on Twitter. I guess it's X now, but on your page, you mentioned always ready to help. And as long as I've known you, that's a mantra that you live by, and that's my experience. So I guess in the spirit of service, what are some things that ag retailers and farmer-owned cooperatives should consider when looking to elevate their level of service to growers?
No, that's a really thoughtful question, Cory, and I appreciate you asking that. And I think kind of going back to what we talked about earlier is as a farmer-owned co-op, if we can kind of approach every single decision, every single thing that we do, that in the eyes of our customers, and you used to think it through this thing well, what's the right, do the right thing. That just seems obvious, but also do the right thing for the members, and think about those decisions locally and what's the right, not just taking a technology to them because it's a neat technology, but actually what value can it bring to them, right? Or a product that you truly believe and can prove that is valuable to the farmer. I think if we bring the things that are valuable and they're the right things to do for the customer, not just the right thing to do for us, we will be successful. And you think about the other thing is, I think we've got to be actively engaged in our rural communities. This may be from in the ag retail space. Sometimes in some of these rural communities, we may be the only employers left in town, or one of the only few employers left in some of these small rural communities in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois. So I think we've got to step up locally. One thing I see amongst our team is a voracious appetite for volunteering, whether it's the local fire department or the 4-H or FFA. They are involved. There's certainly no doubt about it. And I think, I know Keystone Cooperative is going to encourage a lot of our folks on our team to continue to be actively involved in your community, but man, make a difference. When I think about one of the agreements that my wife and I came to when we moved back to her family farm in our community and our county, was that we were going to be involved. We were going to take an active role in making this a better place to live. And we've served on every task force and board that you can imagine, and I take a lot of pride, but I also have a lot of humility as it relates to that, because I've seen when somebody needs help, the rural communities are here to help, and they're here to support people. And I've seen that time and time and time again. And we want to be involved in those kind of things. And I think agriculture, we should, continue to challenge ourselves. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great things. And I think, raise your hand. I just encourage you to get as involved as you possibly can. There's always a million reasons why you're too busy or there's things not going to work, but make your default answer yes instead of default answer no. How about that?
Yeah, like a movie with was it Yes Man? That obviously an extreme example, but saying yes to things can change your perspective get you involved in a lot of different things. That's one of the things that I admire the most, Drew, about you and your family is just the effort and the time that you don't set aside, but you just change your I guess schedule and your time management to be able to fit and do those things. We all have busy lives. I mean, anytime somebody asks you how's this going, usually they say, "Oh, I've been busy." Well, we've all been busy, but are you making an impact? Are you putting yourself in a position to help lead your community? And those are some things that I definitely talk to my wife about, and frequently, we talk about how we can give back and support in different ways. And it doesn't always have to be financial. There's a lot of folks out there that your time is more valuable more oftentimes than not than your money and your resources. So very, very good points there. Okay, so we're coming up close to an hour, and we haven't talked about the big announcement yet. And so as of today, the release date, Ceres and Co-Alliance have come together to form Keystone Cooperative. So we know it's official now. Give us a little background and kind of your excitement about this new adventure.
Yeah, I mean, well, what's really exciting about it, Cory, is the fact that I think we're setting the bar of the future of the farmer-owned system to exist in the marketplace for a very long time. If I start to think about the things that I'm most excited about, that's it. I mean, I'm a big believer that a farmer-owned system needs to exist, and what I mean by that is that the profits and the proceeds of this organization ultimately work its way back into the farmer member owners of the organization and back to the rural communities. This is not a publicly traded company. You can't go buy Keystone Cooperative shares on Wall Street, right? There also is not a sole person or a family who owns this business that the profits are going to. These are going back to the farmer members. And I think that's a really important piece, is that Ceres Solutions, Co-Alliance, with both of those farmer-owned co-ops, were both very strong co-ops, right? They've been growing for a long time. They had kind of this legacy of leadership, and they decided that it was time to set the pace of what the new farmer-owned co-op is going to be. In that, we both bring incredibly strong balance sheets to the field, to our team, creating awesome opportunities for employees to grow their career. I believe that we're gonna find innovative ways to serve the members of the farmer-owned co-op. And I think the co-op is gonna be in a really good position in our region for a very long time because of Keystone Cooperative. We have, there's so many things that we could, drive down as it relates to this. But I think that's the thing that I keep coming back to. One is, hey, we're setting the bar of what a farmer-owned system needs to look like in the future, and we're creating exceptionally cool opportunities for our employees in our rural communities. It's going to be really important that we stay local, and that our local members and the farmers and employees feel the tie to our local communities. That was what was valuable around the cooperative model in the beginning. I could drive right down the road, right, and kind of get to what I wanted. And I think a lot of that local feel can't go away. Those local experts that are working with our customers and our members, they've got to deliver against that local feel. We've got to continue to invest locally in rural communities and FFA and 4-H and the things that are important to those rural communities. I think you'll see Keystone Cooperative maybe even double down on some of those things. And I think this is when you start to think about what the members are saying they are going to want and need in the future, like in 2040, they're saying that they need a ag retail that can meet their needs like we're going to have here at Keystone Cooperative. So I'm excited. It's going to be fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching and working alongside, as this, comes together and things really start unfolding. There's going to be new opportunities for sure. some big changes, but I think all for the better of what's trying to be accomplished with Keystone Cooperative. So thanks for sharing some of that. And I guess as we wrap things up, Drew, what advice do you have for listeners? We talked a lot about ag technology today and innovation and branding and those types of things. So what advice would you have for our audience that may be looking at new opportunities or new technologies in ag?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice there is just jump in. Like, don't be scared to try new things. Like, embrace change. And I think that's something that we tend to be a little conservative in agriculture. Is that I got this thing's working. I don't necessarily want to change. And I think that's what we gotta change that mindset and be willing to look at new opportunities and new things, even if they don't work. You're not going to bat 1,000 on the adoption of new technology on your farm. Like, you got to be in the game. You got to try these things. You got to be willing to have an attitude that's like, I don't know, this may not work, but I'm going to give it my best shot. And I don't know, if 3 out of 10 of them could, land you got to look at that as being successful. Most people would say, what? That's only 30%, Drew. I think that's okay, because you got to make small steps of advancement and try and challenge yourself. So when it comes to technology innovation, apply that 30% rule and just have an open mind to figuring out how to make these things work on the adoption side.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to our guest, Drew Garretson, for an awesome conversation. Man, I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to seeing the continued growth and success of Keystone Cooperative. For those that are listening, AcreForward podcast can be found on all major podcast platforms. You could also visit AcreForwardPodcast.com to listen to past episodes and rewatch this one. I know I'm going to come back and probably listen to a few things because there's a lot of good nuggets in here. So thank you for tuning in. Taranis, always moving the acre forward. Thank you.